Good evening, BookTube. This is Johnny. I'm kind of out of breath. I just went downstairs. We're down the lower level to get a book. The reason why I got this book was that someone left me a comment in my video and they wanted to know how to learn systematic theology or theology. And I gave the person a link because if you go to YouTube, there's all kinds of channels. Now you have to be discerning. That's why I directed this person to Master Seminary, which is the seminary of John MacArthur, who is a conservative evangelical. And they have online in video lectures on systematic theology. So I directed that person to those videos, those lectures on systematic theology. But I was thinking I could have recommended a book. And many, many years ago, when I've mentioned how I got into Reformed theology, Reformed faith, was through reading the 17th century English Puritans and A.W. Pink, who was a 20th century Baptist minister, and he wrote called Studies of the Scriptures, and I won't go into that tonight. But when I came into the Reformed faith, it was around the early 1970s. I was working at the Richmond Rescue Mission in Richmond, California, and I was on staff there. And I don't know how I got in contact with this book, but I picked up this book and I still have it. It's Systematic Theology by Berkhof. And it's published by Erdman's. This is by Systematic Theology by Louis Berkhof. And this was published by Erdman's, and my edition was published in 1974. So that's around the time I must have bought it at some Christian bookstore there in the Richmond or Berkeley or Oakland. And this is how I came into the Reformed faith. There was another thing I just remembered, but I'll show that in the next video. There was another book that I'll tell you the story about it later, those who are interested in how I came into studying Reformed theology. But this was the book. It was, and I was working at the Rescue Mission on staff there, and I would read Louis Berkhof. And that's how I got into the Reformed faith. And I read this book backwards and forwards. Here's this little bookmark. This is Logos Bookstore on Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley, California. That's probably where I bought this book. I used to go to, I mentioned I would go to, on my days off from the Rescue Mission, I would go to Berkeley, and I've mentioned that they had seminary libraries. And I would go there and I would read the 17th century English Puritans and the original 17th century editions, these old leather-bound, dusty volumes. And then I would go to Telegraph Avenue. There was Logos Bookstore, and I would go there. I was really poor. I hardly had any money. Maybe I didn't have any money. Maybe I just went there and, well, I must have had some money because I bought this book. So I would go to Logos and I would look at books. Well, I was always going to bookstores. You know that. On Telegraph Avenue, there was all kinds of bookstores, and I would hang out and look at books. And I would go to the seminary libraries on my days off. And that's probably where I bought this book, was at Logos Bookstore, because it's still in there. So that's how I came into the Reformed faith, was reading Systematic Theology by Louis Berkhof. And it's kind of interesting that when I went to Bible college in '78, this was my textbook. And, when I went to Reformed Bible College, you took systematic theology, and this was my textbook. So I already knew the textbook because I had read it I don't know how many times. One thing else I liked about this volume is that for many years I would use this volume to find books, because if you look in the back, it has in the back of this book, let me see, it has a bibliography, and it has, for example, all these books on different logis of systematic theology. You have anthropology, which is the doctrine of man. You have Christology, the doctrine of Christ. You have soteriology, the doctrine of salvation. Ecclesiology, the doctrine of the church. Eschatology, the doctrine of last things. So what I would do, I would look for these books. I would go to like Kragel's used books. Kragel's had a regular Christian bookstore, but down in the basement they had all these used books, Christian used books, and I would try to find these old Reformed books, and I still have some of these in our library. And of course you had to know which ones were Reformed, but I have a lot of these I would go look for at Kragel's, and I have a lot of old Christian books that I used to collect, but that's been many years. I still could go to Grand Rapids to Baker Bookhouse and look for these books, but I have so many theology books that it's just kind of insane. So that was how I would look for books many years ago. I would look for the best books on theology, the best books on the doctrine of man, the best books on Christology, the best books on salvation, the best books on the doctrine of the church, on eschatology, and all those kinds of things. And I use Berkhof. So that's what I would say. If you want to know systematic theology, if you want to start reading something, it's a good place to start with Berkhof, Systematic Theology. It's been reprinted many times. And then from there you can read John Calvin's Institute of Christian Religion. You can read, I can show you, I have all the systematic theologies if you want to know. Also, I got an email. I've been getting this email from a very interesting fellow over in England. And he he mentioned he's interested in theology, even though he's not a professing Christian. He's interested in theology. And he mentions in here that he has Richard Muller's Post-Reformation Reformed Dogmatics, which is 4 volumes. He says it, which I suspect you have. And I do have Richard Muller. Richard Muller he teaches theology in Grand Rapids at Calvin Seminary. I think he's still there. I'm not really sure, but I know that he is the head of the John Calvin Center there in Grand Rapids, there at Calvin Seminary. But the last book I read by Richard Muller, if you're watching this video, and the fellow, his name is Harvey. Hi, Harvey. Thank you for the emails. The last book I read, Harvey, of Richard Muller was this one, Calvin and the Reformed Tradition on the Work of Christ and the Order of Salvation. This came out by Baker Academic in 2012. So I collect Richard Muller's books, the ones that I can afford. I think there are some I can't afford. He has a book. I have 2 or 3 or 4 of his books, and I have his Post-Reformation Dogmatics. But this is the last one I bought. He might have put out another book since then, but I don't know right now. So today is the March the 17th, 2018. It's a Saturday night. It's 10:17. It's almost my bedtime. It's kind of late to make a video, but I just thought I might as well because I'm not in the room. I didn't really read much today. I know this morning when I got up around 7:15 and I messed with the main computer and I wrote in my 2018 diary. I ended on page 2007. So tomorrow, on March the 18th, I'll be on 2008. So I read this morning, Echoes of Exodus, Tracing a Biblical Motif by Bryan D. Estelle. And I got kind of little, as I was reading this, he wound up just setting forth the standard Orthodox Reformed covenantal theology, which I'm not really into, but that's a whole another video. But anyway, I was reading that. I forgot to mention that one of my free books, I bought this at the Book Nook, I think, or did I get it as a free book? I don't remember, but I didn't show it in a video. This is the Brontes, Wild Genius and the Moors, The Story of a Literary Family by Juliet Barker. I collect the books on the Brontes. So this is a big book. And yeah, so I got this at the Book Nook, I don't know when, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and I forgot to show it in the video. Today, I've been trying to walk every day because I'm getting out of shape. I'm getting old. I'll be 66 years old. Somebody today, I was watching a video and someone mentioned this person that lives in England, and they talked about being in the punk scene in the 1974 and in the 70s. Well, it was around 1974 and 75 that I got into the Reformed faith, and I was in I must have been around 25, 26, and he was 14. I'm getting to be an old guy. Yeah, I got into Reformed faith around 1975, 76, 77, around that time. So I've been walking every day, and I walked at, it's called Outdoor Discovery Center, which is outside the Holland city limits, out in the country. It's a big park. It has a preschool on it. It's environmental. It teaches children to, nature and the environment, and it's a big thing out there. Anyway, on the way home, I passed a thrift store. It's called Bibles for Mexico, and I have to stop there. It's just 2 blocks from where we live, and I picked up this book, The White House, an Historical Guide. This is during the time of Gerald Ford, his presidency. So it's kind of dated, but it's kind of funky. It was only 25 cents. It has all these kind of things here, historical things about the White House. It's kind of, I thought it was kind of cool. So I got that, and then I found this book on the Romanovs, ruling Russia 1613 to 1917 by Lindsey Hughes. I come across books on the Romanovs all the time. I don't know why people are so fascinated with them, but I found this book. It was only 50 cents. And then I found this book, Understanding the Dead Sea Scrolls, a reader from the Biblical Archaeological Review, edited by Hershel Shanks. it was only 50 cents. I can put it in my Christian library. You know, I don't know. You know, I looked through it. Only 50 cents. And that's it. I got 2 books in the mail from a booktuber who I won't mention his name. I don't want to embarrass him. But one of the books he sent me, the other book my wife took to work with her, which was titled, my wife reads sometimes. She doesn't really have time, but she thinks she might have time. The other book from my booktube friend was Making Sense of God, Finding God in the Modern World by Timothy Keller. My wife took that one to work to look at. And this is the other book the booktuber so graciously sent us as a gift. The Footsteps of King David, Revelations from an Ancient Biblical City by these 3, Garfinkel, Ganor, and Hasel. So thank you, fellow booktuber out there, for sending the books. Oh, I forgot, I got this book too at Bibles to Mexico. It's a little book called Stott's Original Miscellany by Ben Scott. My wife is really into trivia. When she's at work, she's all, her and her workmate, her work co-workers are always trying to do trivial questions, and so I thought she might like this. It's on, it's like it says here, Sgt. Pepper, which is the Beatle album. The following list contains some of those people whose images appear on Peter Blake's celebrated 1967 cover of the Beatles. Excuse me, the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper album. Aleister Crowley, Mae West, Lenny Bruce, W.C. Fields, Carl Gustav Jung, Edgar Allan Poe, Fred Astaire, Bob Dylan, it goes down here, Terry Southern, Tony Curtis, Marilyn Monroe, William Burroughs, Karl Marx, it just goes on and on. Dylan Thomas, Max Miller, Marlon Brando, Albert Einstein, Oscar Wilde, Stephen Crane, Lewis Carroll, Diana Dore, Shirley Temple, it goes on. This is all of these people, things like that. Just miscellaneous little things. My wife likes books like that. And I like, you know, it was only 50 cents. So that's it. So there was something I wanted to talk about in BookTube. Something that was on my mind, and now I can't remember what it was. But anyway, my wife's always saying that too. But anyway, I wanted to mention this book by Berkhof. Those who want to get into systematic theology or Reformed. Now, there are books out there that are not Reformed, that's just Christian evangelical theology. If you want to know about those, you know, just ask me and I can show those. But most of the systematic theologies I have are Reformed. I do have a couple, maybe, no, I don't have any Baptist systematic theologies or Wesleyan or Pentecostal or Baptist. I don't. Most of it is Reformed. Because I mentioned, it was only about the last, I stopped working in 2007. I started reading outside literature, I mean not Christian literature, around 2009. So it's only been maybe the last 10 years, 9 years that I've really expanded my reading. And now I have too many books. Now sometimes I think I should just get rid of most of my secular books and just go back to reading systematic theology and Christian spirituality and the 17th century Puritans and biblical interpretation, New Testament theology, Pauline theology. Just read the Bible, get on my knees and pray, because, you know, my life is coming to a close pretty fast. But I don't know. I'm running out of room down there in the lower level, and it's really getting to... It's almost like I was thinking the other day, maybe I'm in a state of sin. Maybe what's on my mind all the time? See, if you're a Christian, shouldn't spiritual things be on your mind all the time? God, Jesus Christ, divine realities. And I find myself thinking about BookTube, thinking about books, thinking about I got to get rid of books. I can't get rid of books. I'm always going in this kind of turmoil all the time, and it's becoming like a mental obsession. And I'm thinking to myself, is that really good spiritually? Is that healthy? I mean, shouldn't I be, if it's preoccupying my mind so much, books, BookTube, book reviews, looking for books, buying books, just thinking about books all the time, shouldn't I be thinking about God all the time? Thinking about eternity, thinking about living a life of prayer. You know what I'm saying? Am I getting imbalanced? Am I going off the deep end about this? I don't know, sometimes. What are your thoughts out there, BookTube world? What do you think? Am I going crazy? Have I become worldly minded? I don't know. Anyway, I just thought I'd share these thoughts with you. I'll download this video. It's going on 10:29 at night. I go to bed at 11 o'clock. That's just my habit. I get up really early. Tomorrow's a Sunday, beginning of a new week. We go into the spring. Spring is we go into the spring season next week. So today it was sunny, but it was very cold. Tomorrow it's supposed to be sunny and cold. I don't know where I'm going to walk tomorrow. I'm taking photos. For those who know that my hobby is not only books, but photography. I'm not a professional photographer. I just take photos of what I see around me when I'm walking. I take pictures of birds outside our kitchen window. I take pictures of birds and nature and things like that. Anyway, hoping you're having a good night, that you'll have a good new week. And until next time, thank you for the new subscribers. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the emails. Thank you, the booktuber out there who sent us some books. That was really nice of you. Until next time, bye.